It is 8:11. You're listening to This Morning. It is Friday, and it is time for commentary. Our resident expert, Dr. Kim Byoung-Joo, also the host of Weekly Review, our ombudsman program, airing Sunday at 11 a.m. here on TBS EFM, joining us in the studio. Good morning, as usual, Doctor.
Good morning.
Well, we're going to be talking about quite a sensitive issue today, and it really does involve very multiple layers and facets as far as society goes. And, of course, it's dealing with the issue of expatriates, foreigners. A lot of our listeners tend to be expatriates and foreigners who reside in Korea and some of the difficulties they face. And in some cases, I guess it does lead to discrimination against them. We're going to also connect with a guest on the line later on who has some litigation going on as well. But first of all, can you give us I know this is very difficult to do, of course, in the limited time we have, but this broad overview of foreigners residing in Korea and, I guess, the issue of discrimination in Korean society.
Right. At this point, we know that we have about 1.16 million foreigners residing inside Korea. And in addition, I think we have 100,000 foreigners who have been naturalized.
Right.
And the human rights issue has emerged as one of the important issues for the society. For example, early May, we had a 세계인의 날. I don't feel completely comfortable with the English name of it, but Together Day, where when the Prime Minister came out together with the Minister of Justice, emphasizing the need to protect and promote human rights for foreigners in Korea. And this issue in Korea is very interesting because it's intertwined with labor issues and also family issues, meaning family violence and so on, that's related to the marriage with international marriage and so on.
Sure.
So very complicated but very overreaching, and the scope of that issue seems to be quite wide in a way. And different local governments, for example, at this time, are working very hard, seem to be at least working very hard to address these issues, but it's very difficult because we have some interesting labor regulations that grants the visas to the workers, and there we have a considerable number of illegal so-called aliens in Korea. Because of their status, they have difficulties in terms of filing their cases of their human rights violations to authorities and so on. So what we call 인권 사각지대. I don't know what's the proper translation for it is, but this is an issue area. It's very difficult because we have this interesting twist of legal systems and so on.
Yeah, and that is, you bring up that point because there are indeed so many layers of this, because there are so many different types of foreigners now. I mean, we've gone from, I guess, the hermit kingdom of the 19th century where Korea was really just a very closed-off society, not open to foreigners, to now we're in a situation where, okay, we have foreigners who come in from the Western countries, and they're treated in one way. And then you have, like you said, there's laborers and migrant workers, and perhaps even some who have been illegal aliens residing in the country. And so there does seem to be some standards that are double standardish as far as the treatment of various foreigners go in the country. And I guess the government's challenge right now is to have this wider paradigm shift of perception in society where we all, regardless of what your background is, we all treat our visitors who come to Korea with the respect that they deserve.
Right. And not only that, but also like still in economic sections of newspapers, we still hear about this 먹튀 argument. Like foreign capital that comes in and take their profit and run away. Underlying assumption there is theirs is bad, ours is good. Foreign entity is something you always have to watch out for. This is a more peripheral issue, but still it includes the overall scope of how Korean people view foreigners and outsiders altogether. And this also comes from the Korea's unique historical background, where homogeneity of the society was used during the 70s and 60s, 70s, and 80s as a tool, political tool to mobilize the people and the public in order to, drive everyone into the national cause of economic development and so on.
Right.
And all of a sudden, like after 80s, 90s, all of a sudden after holding the Olympic Games, this is a global society, and we're calling ourselves Asian hub of Asia. So this is a transformation indeed, and all of a sudden the self-identity of Koreans themselves face a new challenge in a way. So in academia, for example, there are lots of talks about what nationalism really is and what the national identity in Korea is, and now we have this incredibly dramatically fast rising ratio of international marriage in Korea.
Sure.
And the second generation that are coming from those marriages, they're all raising different kinds of questions.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about those demographic shifts in the rural areas where there's been such a flight to major cities. A lot of the agricultural workers there who are men
Right.
I guess that trend has been for international marriages and having brides that come in from overseas. And so I guess that wider concept of whether even you're Korean or Korean American of 민족, right? That Korean identity has now, because of this rapid globalization that maybe some people are saying is paced a little bit faster than Koreans are ready for, has led to some of these problems.
Right, absolutely. And Mr. Hussain, who will be connecting soon, I mean, his case tells us clear view between this, like, old traditional view that looks at foreigners on one
Right.
side and the changing reality of Korea that's currently, the current situation that we face in Korea. There is this stark contrast between these two
Right.
perceptions.
You know, actually, that is a good segue then, because we are going to bring in our guest, Mr. Bonojit Hussain. Remarkable story. He did come from India to Korea to study at Seongonghae University. He's a researcher there, and his thesis, his research topic is race discrimination and the deterioration of democracy in Asia. So from an academic perspective, he was looking at this issue. And then now from a personal perspective, Mr. Hussain is involved in a suit against a man who issued racial epithets toward him and a Korean woman that he was with. And I guess this is considered in the media unprecedented, at least for a foreigner making personally an allegation like this and going through the legal process. So he is joining us on the line right now to discuss his views on the wider issue of Korea and discrimination and how foreigners are treated. Mr. Hussain, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Thank you very much for joining us, sir, on this morning and spending your time with us.
You?
I guess, first of all, just detail your personal experience and what you've been going through recently.
Yeah, the most recent incident which has been reported in the media is that I was traveling with a female friend in a bus, and suddenly this Korean man started yelling at me, and he started off by saying, "You stinky bastard, what are you doing here?" And then when I didn't respond, he kept on going that, "Where are you from? You Arab, you Arab." Then he turned on to my female friend and he abused her that, "Oh, are you Korean? How does it feel to date a black guy?" So then I took him to the police, and I was shocked that the police were more supportive of him than me. And just because I looked different, they assumed that I cannot be a research professor. So they suspected my identity, and it took them almost like 1.5 hours to just verify my identification. So I found the police to be equally racist in that case. But this is not a one-off case. Most migrants from South Asia or Southeast Asia, irrespective of their job, face similar kind of problems every day. And one of the very subtle form of racial discrimination is in Korea, is the subway, where I have been observing for last 2 years that people feel really uncomfortable to sit beside a person who is from South Asia or Southeast Asia. So actually, as you already mentioned, the issue is a multi-layered issue. On one hand, I feel that Koreans are very conscious that they sometimes feel that they are inferior to the West. At the same time, in past decades, Korea have developed rapidly, and they're one of the leading economies in Asia. So there is this also catching up tendency with the West. And with this feeling of being inferior to the West, you also need to inferiorize someone else. And at the same time, you have plenty of migrant workers coming in from South Asia and Southeast Asia, which is actually a reality, that there will be more and more migration to Korea as Korean labor force is aging and the economy is in the longer term booming. So it's very much a reality. I mean, my personal feeling is that it is high time to take this issue up. Otherwise, in near future, maybe in 10 years or 15 years, it might lead to a very different situation where you might have even racial riots.
Okay.
Mr. Hussain, I think you made a very interesting point, and two of the points that I want to make and get back to and ask for your opinion is, number one is more general point, that is, Koreans kind of urge to differentiate themselves from the Westerners and also differentiate themselves from the Southeast Asians, for example. That such tendency has been pointed out before in academia with regard to Japanese. Ever since the beginning of their modernization from the early 20th century. I don't know. I'm sure you remember this. Even during the early 20th century, Japanese were looking down on other Asians in a way. Ways to differentiate themselves and so on. So it's interesting that we notice similar tendency of human psychology in play here, number one. And number two is, you could take this person to the police station, but however, I suppose the real serious problem here in Korea is many of the foreign workers in Korea, partly sometimes because of their legal status, and sometimes because of their language limits and so on, they have to often bear with this kind of, and even more severe situations where they feel their human rights are violated. They have no way to appeal to the authorities and make their case official. I suppose that is the real sad reality that we face. Would you agree on that?
Yeah, I completely agree with you, and I have been very conscious of this, and I have been saying this to the media that you are taking it up as a special case because I am actually in a privileged position to go to the police station and talk to a lawyer and get support from other civil society organizations. But the reality remains that this situation is faced by thousands of migrant workers every day, but they don't have any legal recourse and they don't have any other support. So it becomes a fact of life for them which they need to accept, and that's really sad because this experience, everyday experience, is really dehumanizing.
And as you know, Mr. Hussain, Korean police, for example, has set up at three locations. They have set up a center to protect human rights of the foreigners. I think one is in Jongno, another one Yongsan, and another one in Yeongdeungpo. But the problems that have been pointed out by the critics is that not many foreigners can actually use these centers because, once again, for the reasons of the legal status and the language and so on. Do you see among the acquaintances that you have severe skepticism, and also I'm just wondering if there's any idea to make the system work better in a way? I understand that different localities have set up different centers to promote human rights or to address the issues of racism in Korea, and also there are several NGOs, in action at this point. What do you think? What do you think are the things that needs to be done further in reality to address these issues?
I think setting up these centers are a good sign, but at the same time they are not sufficient until and unless the government institutions are not sensitized, until and unless the police is not sensitized, if the police are not given proper training on how to deal with racial discrimination, I think it will not help much. Because even from my own personal experience with this incident, when I went to the police station, the police kept on insisting that please apologize to each other, and this is just a matter of personal insult. So please apologize. So I insisted that no, this is a racial abuse, and the police kept on insisting that sorry, there is no racial abuse in Korea. We treat everyone equally. So as long as government agencies are not given proper training on racial relations, I think it will not help much.
There, I think I see a clash of cultural civilization there, because police insisting on apology to each other.
That's a very Korean thing.
Way, right? Rather than going through the legal conflict and confrontation, they were kind of encouraging what's normally accepted in Korea.
Which doesn't, of course, excuse the incident itself.
That is true.
But there is that issue of habit, where if there is a situation, let's not take this any further and let's just settle it right here, right?
Right. Let's wrap it up this way, amicable way. So that was very typical Korean way, as you understand, Mr. Hussain, right?
Yeah, I understand, but there is another aspect to it. The police was insisting that apologize to each other, whereas as far as I am concerned, I was the victim. I should not apologize to anyone.
Right. There's no question.
Well,
about that.
Mr. Hussain, we are going to have to leave it there for now, but a lot of people who have read your story through the media do have a lot of sympathy with you, and I do hope that the support that you receive, as well as, of course, the challenges that you're going through, lead you to what you want as far as your current suit goes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah.
That was Mr. Bonojit Hussain. He is currently filing a suit against a Korean man for racial epithets being hurled at him and facing discrimination in society. When we hear what Mr. Hussain says, and he's able to intellectualize this to a certain extent because of the fact that this has been what he's been researching in his studies here. I'm wondering, though, I mean, what struck me, Dr. Kim, is that, yes, there is a racial issue here, and I guess as your final point, you can wrap up on this, but there's race issues and there's layers, but really also there's some class issues involved as well here, you know, because most of the people that we speak with who are fairly cosmopolitan and have international experiences, you don't see those same attitudes by Koreans who have more provincial type of attitudes, and who would actually be bold enough to yell something like that to a foreigner.
Indeed. There's a big divides in a way inside Korean society. For example, I was talking about this issue with my wife who's working in Samsung-dong area, and her response was, oh, when I see the Indian gentleman, I usually think about Microsoft and all these software companies that are set up along the Taeran. And so it depends on where you live, where you work, and all these things. And also this Korean man who probably was involved in incidents probably is coming from very traditional view of Korean society, where there's a strong belief of still there is a strong belief in homogeneity and so on. So Korea is kind of moving along, but there are factions of the society that still live in the past.
Another one of these issues that we would need 1 hour to really fully delve into.
Absolutely.
Thank you once again, sir.
Thank you.
Dr. Kim Byoung-Joo with today's commentary. It's 8:28. Moving on to part 4 of the program.
The sponsor would provide this kind of vaccine for free of charge in the areas where they cannot afford.
Well, Professor, we thank